WiSP Sports Radio, the voice of women in sport.
Hello and welcome to the WiSP Sports Desk, our weekly news roundup from around the world of women's sports. This is Season 2, Episode 3. I'm Chris Stafford.
Hi, I'm Nancy Gillen.
And we are about to offer you the latest news around the world of women's sports because thanks to Nancy, who jets all over the place and catches the news wherever she can. I was just saying to you before we started recording, Nancy, you know, how extensive Inside the Games is.
Yeah, we really do kind of cover all kinds of sports. We try to, kind of have a fair playing field when it comes to what sports we cover as well. So yeah, we do everything really.
Yeah, fantastic team. And you get called away at short notice, as we found out last week. And before we found out you get called away, catching the news wherever you can, as I said. And you had a very brief but a productive visit to Panama, didn't you, last week?
Yeah, so I found out about 48 hours before that I was going. And it was for a boxing meeting. So some people will know the Boxing Federation is just in a bit of a mess, and they're not organising the Olympic boxing competition this year. So they're kind of just trying to get themselves reinstated and back to a good place. So they're holding kind of continental forums across the world to kind of talk to national federations like face to face, when I don't think they were doing that beforehand. So I went to their one in the Americas, which was luckily in Panama because it was a very nice place. It was interesting. There was I wasn't actually allowed into the meeting, which I found a bit bizarre, but I got to talk to a lot of people and kind of find out what they were doing, which was good.
So did they make progress then? I mean, because as you said, they really came undone last year, didn't they? And there was one guy there, one of their he's the chief executive, the Russian guy, who was going to buy things out. I mean, just make it all happen just by writing a big check. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, that's Umar Kremlev. So he's now head of the marketing commission there. So his job is kind of to promote boxing and make it look better than it is. And he's also part of the Russian Boxing Federation as well. So like you said, he did try to offer. He basically said to the IOC, I'll just wipe off the Boxing Federation's debts, and if you let us back into the Olympics. And they of course said no, because there's no real sign of where this money had come from. So yeah, that was a no-go. But I did talk to him. He was in Panama. I talked to him there, and it was his opinion that these meetings were enough for to get themselves reinstated, because he thought that it's going to improve the organisation in every way. So if the national federations know all the rules about judging, refereeing, ethics, doping, then they're going to improve, and then the confederations are going to improve, and then the Boxing Federation as a whole is going to improve, and then there'd be no reason for them not to be reinstated. So that was his view on it, which I think was very optimistic, because it was just kind of one meeting. I don't think it's going to change things anytime soon, but it was interesting to talk to him and kind of hear his views on it anyway.
So they're still not going to be instated in time for Tokyo then?
Oh, yeah, no, Tokyo's definitely out of the question. I was talking to my editor about it because he's quite savvy with these things, and he thinks probably summer of 2021, so a year and a half away. I think they'll probably get Tokyo, won't happen, but then I think they'll probably get past that, and then have probably like a 3-year run up to the next Olympics to make sure they don't mess it up too much again.
And how will that impact their World Championships?
Because I was there I was at the World Champs earlier this year, and the difference is that they can't qualify for the Olympics from it. So that would stay the same in the future, which I suppose does kind of make a difference. Maybe athletes will go to the World Championships and maybe not, because there's not Olympic places there. Maybe they won't try as hard. But I think a world title is, just as important really as an Olympic gold medal. So I think there will still be a really competitive edge to the World Championships.
Yeah, often World Championships are in some sports, well, especially the non-Olympic sports, obviously there's more kudos there.
Yeah, definitely.
Obviously if they're not in the Olympics, but even if they're in the Olympics, World Championships really do carry a lot of weight, don't they? I mean, I know in equestrian sport, it's a big deal, the World Championships, and a lot of other sports too. So they won't go off the world stage, but we'll keep an eye out for how they do, advance the sport and get back in favour with the IOC maybe next year, as you said. Well, we're coming to the end of the Youth Olympic Games in Lausanne, aren't we? It ends, I think, today, 22nd.
Yeah, today's the last day. It seems like it's because I was there at the start of the month. It seems like it's gone on forever, but it's final day today. Yeah.
And that, has been a lot of fun. It's had a lot of coverage. Obviously, great fun for youth, but it's had, some really fabulous. I've been watching some clips of it. Incredible performances, and we're looking at athletes now who could be, our future Olympians in senior Olympics.
Yeah, and the Youth Olympic Games is like a relatively new venture. I think it's only been going for about 10, 15 years. But already there's been athletes who have done well at the Youth Olympics and then gone on to win an actual Olympic gold. So I think when I did a preview of it, I think Chloe Kim, who is the slopestyle Olympic champion, she'd competed at Lillehammer in 2016, which was the previous Youth Olympic Games, and done well there. So it's not kind of, just like any old young people. They are people that are on track to be the best in the senior world as well. So it is, like if you do watch the games properly, and you kind of actually acknowledged each winner, you'd probably be able to predict the future Olympic champions in the next 4 or 8 years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a indicator of form. Yeah, exciting. And of course, everybody gets excited with the Olympic Games too. So hopefully the Youth Olympic Games will, pick up a bit of traction too now, and people will pay attention to just that, right? That these are future Olympic stars.
Yeah, hopefully it will just kind of keep rising. I think that this one in Lausanne it's gone down well. So hopefully, it can just keep building.
And didn't I read somewhere that it's changed Lausanne's mind about hosting future games too? That it has gone down so well there.
Yeah, I think I read something on that as well. And it's Lausanne is because it is known as the Olympic City, and it was when I was there. It was just the atmosphere was brilliant, and it was really. It's just the way it's built. The city is really good to have kind of something going on. That they had like a festival almost area, kind of like Lausanne is on levels, so it's like down below they had this festival kind of area. And I suppose if you hated the games and wanted to get away with it, there were areas where there was no sign of it, which is probably quite good. But it was and the transport system is perfect. It's so easy to get everywhere. The venues look really good. So hopefully it will encourage them to have a few more things as well.
Yeah, gotta love Switzerland. Love it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, moving right along to an article that you wrote about, you're talking about the IOC and the politics of sport too. And you raised the question that Megan Rapinoe, the US soccer star, of course, she could potentially be the biggest threat to political neutrality at the Tokyo Games. Just unpack that a little bit for us and tell us what your conclusion was.
Well, there's been a big uproar almost about the IOC's stance on athletes not being able to show any kind of political message at Tokyo. So there's been a lot of discussion about how it's kind of wrong, and then I think people have been thinking, is it even likely to happen? Is anyone actually going to do it, and if so, what athletes? And then I just saw on Twitter Rapinoe's response to the IOC, and immediately it kind of hit me that she's almost definitely going to do something just because she does. And even when she doesn't sing the American anthem before games, I think some people have said, well, people don't sing anthems. It's their choice whether they want to or not. Some people don't like, the England team sometimes don't sing because they don't know the words or something like that. But
they're self-conscious about singing.
Yeah, they just don't particularly want to. It's not really a political statement. But with Rapinoe, it is a political statement, and she has made it clear that it is. Like, the reason she doesn't sing it is, she's taken the knee previously in support of Colin Kaepernick. She doesn't sing it because she doesn't agree with, the American government. She doesn't agree with some of the injustices happening in America. So she's made it clear for her it is a political thing. So the women's football tournament starts 2 days before the games actually begin. So you've got the group, obviously, because football tournaments can last a long time. You've got the group stages take place on the 22nd of July, which is one of the first. It's one of the first things to happen in the games. Full stop. So if America have a game and she doesn't sing the anthem, probably the IOC already have trouble on their hands, I think. And then that's not even considering the fact that America are probably very likely to win gold. And it's almost like she's been riled by it, because her statement, it was something like, we will not be silenced. You can't silence athletes. We won't be silenced. And she's always been riled now because of their repeated warnings. Don't protest. Don't show any political message. She's almost, she'd probably remember that now. And on the podium, she'd probably go more out of her way to do something. So
to make her point.
Yeah. If I wasn't already going to be watching the women's football, I'm definitely going to be watching it now, because I personally think that's, if anything's going to happen, that's where it's going to come from.
That's true. And I think also any statement that she makes will possibly have a knock-on effect. And others are thinking, well, if Megan Rapinoe did it, then we can. And she's got to the point, I think, in her career where she's at an age where she may not make the next Olympics in Paris. So she's thinking, okay, what's she got to lose?
Yeah.
As long as it doesn't threaten the team, as long as it doesn't jeopardize the position of the team. I mean, that's obviously important, and she wouldn't want that, I'm sure. Yeah,
I think almost that would be too... if the IOC, say if she did something and the IOC punished the team, like, they'd be digging a grave for themselves, really, because I think that would be taken so badly by a lot of sports fans. I think if, the American team were punished, it is almost like, what would the IOC even do if she did do something? And my colleague made the really good point that, of course, this summer, when the Olympics will be happening, is going to kind of be the run up to the election, the US election.
True.
So,
yeah,
the political climate in America might be a bit higher than normal, and might be a few more American athletes willing to say something when ordinarily they maybe wouldn't have.
Yeah, that's a good point. But as you say, I think people will be watching now, because they'll know something's going to happen. But as you say, what is the IOC going to do about it? We will watch that with interest. Staying on soccer, I don't know if I should bring this to anybody's attention, that your team got beaten, well and truly beaten. Arsenal got beaten by Chelsea. The reason I'm paying attention to this, not just because you're an Arsenal supporter, and I'm not sort of, buying with the other side here. There's no rivalry here on the WiSP Sports Desk. But I am a big fan of Sam Kerr, who opened her account in that game for Chelsea. Did that hurt too badly for you as an Arsenal supporter? I mean, are you just moving right along?
It was funny enough, because the men's team also played Chelsea yesterday and we drew, so it wasn't the best week for playing in Chelsea. It was hard because it was the title race, really. It's either Arsenal or Chelsea are going to win the title, and that's just given Chelsea a massive boost. And I also think the nature of it, because I couldn't watch it, I was working, but I had it on in the background. So I think I watched the first 5 minutes, and then I went back to it at 20 minutes, and we were 3-0 down. I think it was the nature of it, that it was really... It
was very fast, wasn't it? Like first 20 minutes or something, they just scored 3 times. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. They scored 3 times in quick succession, and that was it. The game was over. But Yeah, I think it was good for women's football in the country as a whole that Kerr scored, because people were waiting for it, and I think a lot of the Chelsea fans were waiting for it. It was a sellout crowd as well. It was 4,000 people at the stadium. Yeah, completely sold out. I think because of the nature of the game, because Kerr was playing, because it's two massive rivals. So yeah, even though Arsenal lost, it was a good game for women's football. Yeah.
Good game for women's football. All right. Okay. Well, on we go. We are moving right along to a couple of stories about women in executive positions now. And, we've talked in the past, Nancy, about there not being enough women in sports administration. But we've got a couple of stories. One I know that you wrote about the triathlete Ueda of Japan has joined the International Triathlon Union Executive Board now.
Yeah. She's been competing in triathlon for years, it seems. She started in 2002. She's aiming for her 4th Olympics at Tokyo. So she was at Beijing, London, and Rio. And she's won quite a few things as well. So I think she's really well respected. When I've been covering triathlon in the past year and a half or so, it's, her name does always come up. She seems to always be there. And I think the triathlon executive committee, they've already got one athlete's representative on the board, but he's a man. And I think they decided last year to add a female representative just to kind of, make a more fair gender balance. And then also just athletes, I think they just felt they needed to have more athletes representation on the committee as a whole. So yeah, she's been added onto that, and she's already started her duties with that, as well as trying to qualify for Tokyo 2020 as well.
Yeah, and then over here in US Biathlon, they've hired the Olympian Sarah Studebaker-Hall as Director of Operations. Now, Sarah's been pretty involved with the sport now in different roles, and I think this is just a career move for her, really good career move for her, but it does increase their gender equality on their board as well. Did you see that story? I mean, I think that's biathlon is biathlon. It's one sport, but I think that it's all part of building this sort of pyramid of women's roles administratively, on boards and so on, in the boardroom, that influence change and increase gender equality in administrative roles on boards of governing bodies, boards and so on. Did you see that story?
Yeah, I did. And yeah, like you said, I think it's really important to get women in higher up roles, and then hopefully bring through more women. So then we've kind of got, more of a 50-50 split.
Yeah, so good for them, and well done, Sarah. Moving right along now, because of course the Australian Open is happening in Melbourne right now. And the one thing I did read before we talk about some of the results here so far in the early rounds, Nancy, is that they had one of the first tennis courts certainly in Grand Slam to have a covered roof, and now they've added 2 more. Did you know that? So they've got 3 courts now that are covered.
I didn't know that.
Or can be covered.
I didn't. That seems, because I don't know how much it rains really. Does it affect?
Well, not that much, but I tell you what, they'll probably be very glad of it now with the air pollution from the bushfires.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's one of the big stories about this year's Australian Open, really, isn't it? And I know there's quite a few players that are unhappy that it's still going ahead.
Yeah, some of them have really been affected, but hopefully it doesn't get any worse now. The early rounds, of course, have started, and we just saw that Coco Gauff will be facing Naomi Osaka. She's moved on and to the 3rd round now, so they'll be actually facing off each other, which will be a very interesting tussle, those two.
Yeah.
Of course, Naomi made her name there last year, didn't she?
Yeah, I think I'm really excited for that, and I'm hoping it's at a time where I can watch it, because obviously a lot of these matches are taking place at 2-3 in the morning here. But yeah, like you said, Osaka, she kind of made her name last year and the year before, and then Coco Gauff after, she is more kind of this year. And it's kind of two really, really big talents for the future. And you can see both of them being in women's tennis and being at the top of women's tennis for years. I imagine Osaka, they've played before, haven't they? And Osaka won.
Yes.
Well, I can't remember what tournament that was, but it was quite late last year, I think.
It wasn't Singapore, was it, for WTA finals? I'm just guessing now. It might have been, but I'll have to check that. So don't hold me to that. But yeah, I think that would be an interesting face-off, that will. And they're already going to meet
I'm excited
in the
for
third
that.
round. But Serena Williams, of course, she's been champion there now 7 times in Melbourne. She's got through to the third round as well. She beat the Slovenian Tamara Zidanšek in straight sets. And, the Americans get very excited about Serena. Even Coco, of course, they get excited about her as a rising talent, but they still get just as excited about Serena winning.
Yeah, and I think maybe, they're just so grateful that they've kind of still got her playing at the top of her game. Maybe people expected that she, would have retired a couple of years ago or so on, and just kind of like every tournament that she plays in and still doing so well. It's great that she's still playing and we can still watch her play, really.
Yep, and a few more names. Some expected to get through to the third round. That's the number 1 seed, Ash Barty, and the unseeded Caroline Wozniacki. They're both through, as is the unseeded Brit Heather Watson, so you'll be pleased with that. And the American number 10, Madison Keys. A lot of support for Heather, for any of your British players, though. And I mean, always considered the underdog. So when they make progress, it's a big deal.
Yeah, Konta went out yesterday, which I think would be really frustrating for her because she is incredibly hit and miss. So there's tournaments that she plays in where she's so good, and then other tournaments she just really, really struggles. And I think she was playing maybe the world number 98 or something, and I think she'd be disappointed at going out so soon.
Yeah, she's bound to be. Yeah, because she has done pretty well of late, hasn't she? And really getting some traction. But yeah, that must be disappointing for her, as Maria Sharapova will be too. She got out in the first round. Now, you and I were texting before this, and you're talking about her. She's now 32. She had a bad shoulder injury last year. She's coming back from. But you made the point that people are talking about that rather than the fact that she's having to come back after that suspension.
Yeah, when I was in London yesterday, and I was coming back up on the train and just reading all the sport in the paper, and it was it had a little bit about Sharapova, how she'd lost, and it was kind of saying she's had she's come back from injury, she's had 4 bad shoulder injuries and so on, which is true, and it is completely hard to come back from that as well. But then she also did miss a year of tennis through the doping suspension she got in 2016. So she missed, I think, nearly all of 2016 and half of 2017. Which again, she didn't play tennis for a year and a half. So I think that's also a massive factor in how she lost her form. Because before that, she was kind of, did have injuries, but she still was one of the best female players. Like, remember that news was quite shocking when she received that ban. And then really, after that, she hasn't been as good. So I do find it just a bit odd that people don't really factor that in as well when talking about how she's just not really recovered at all.
Yeah, they're really pushing that into the back of their minds. And, I suppose if they're a fan of Maria Sharapova and they want to see her come back, and she seems to be extremely popular, got a huge following on social media as well. But it is harder to recover from injury. Just get back as you get older. She's now 32, which is not old. We've got older tennis players than that. But I still think it's going to be more of a struggle for her. And clearly she hasn't found that form yet. I was a little bit surprised that she got into the Australian Open, but not, on the other hand, because she is Maria Sharapova, right? And she's not seeded. Yeah,
well, she was a wild card, wasn't she, I think?
Yeah. We'll talk about other wild things happening at Australian Open. And you knew this was coming up. Margaret Court, of course, has been in the centre of a lot of controversy because of her religious beliefs and how they're playing into
her being in the spotlight now because there's the Margaret Court Arena, and some wish that would be renamed. Margaret herself said she wishes people would stick to the tennis. And you have to acknowledge, I mean, she's 77 years old now, and she won 24 Grand Slam singles titles during her career. And that's a record which still stands for both men and women. But she is very religious. She is a pastor now in Perth. And she sticks by her religious beliefs and the teachings of the Bible, which is very opposed to same-sex marriage and same-sex relationships. And so people like Martina Navratilova and others, you know, calling her a racist and a homophobe, and there's a lot of animosity there, which is a shame. But she's back in the spotlight now because she's there in Melbourne. What do you think about that? Do you think that the tennis and the religious beliefs should be separate, or is it a bit like the sport, you know, politics and, you know, demonstrating your beliefs in the political world and using the sport as the arena?
Well, I think in her case, for me, she's just too outspoken about it. I think she's too kind of I'm just reading the story that we've done about it, and you know, she's boycotting Australian Airlines for supporting same-sex marriage, and she's written a letter like criticizing an Australian tennis player, because, you know, because I think it's just there's two. She herself is kind of almost merging the tennis and her views there, because she could just have those views silently. And you know, and she could be seen as this great figure in tennis and be celebrated for that, and her own views she could have silently. But it's almost like, because she's so outspoken about it, and she there, you know, criticizing an Australian tennis player, she has brought tennis into it there. So I think it's hard. I think it's quite hypocritical for her to say, I wish people would just forget about my views and see it as what I did in tennis, and then just, you know, be so outspoken about those views that she has. And I don't really think it does fit into, you know, like the way sport is at the moment and the way we want sport to be. I think, you know, she has been amazing in the past and obviously done great things for women's tennis and women's sport as a whole. But, you know, kind of sport has progressed on, and it's a lot more, it's even more open and accepting than it was before. And I think it's a bit, you know, when you have someone kind of saying those kind of things, it you know, it's not really where we're at anymore.
Yeah, I agree with you. You can't have it both ways, can you? And you know, when she is, as you say, she wrote a letter criticising Casey Lacroix and having a child in a same-sex relationship. You know, she didn't need to. You know, no. She is a pastor, you know, obviously she's very religious, she's a pastor. But as you say, she can't have it both ways.
Yeah, exactly, she can't. It's too personal, I think, writing a letter criticising someone, that's way too personal.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I understand why they've named the arena after her. But I think it was all the stuff at the Open, they were kind of really celebrating her and so on. And maybe, yeah, and also I do think to an extent, if she was being, you know, say if she had really sexist views, I think probably wouldn't have that kind of, you know, like celebration and so on. I think maybe it's potentially what she has a view on is kind of, I don't know, it's quite hard to say. But I think if she was being sexist, I think people were kind of saying, right, no, we're definitely not celebrating you whatsoever, because what she's arguing about is at the moment a little bit more kind of, people, you know, aren't as 100% accepting. Then some people are kind of giving her her views, you know, air to be listened to, which I don't really agree with.
Well, Martina Navratilova said her vitriol is not just an opinion. She's actually trying to keep LGBTQ people from getting equal rights. And in a statement announcing the arrangements in Melbourne last year, Tennis Australia said, "We respect Margaret's unmatched tennis career and welcome her to the Australian Open, particularly in this milestone anniversary year." But as often stated, Tennis Australia does not agree with Margaret's personal views, which have demeaned and hurt many in our community over a number of years. So there you have it. We will see what happens. We'll see if they do rename the Margaret Court Arena after all up there at Melbourne Park. Right. Well, the Australian Open keeps going. As we said, they're going into the third round now. And that winds up with the final, the weekend of the 1st, 2nd of February. So we'll be continuing to follow that here on the WiSP Sports Desk. And our final story, it'll be interesting to see how this affects sport. The Wuhan China virus outbreak, Nancy. Do you have an indication now how it's impacting sport?
Well, yeah, they've. I think this has just come out today that the Asian Football Confederation have moved one of their qualifiers for the women's football tournament at Tokyo 2020. So that was originally meant to take place in Wuhan next month at the beginning of February, and it's now been moved to Nanjing. Everything's the same, like the same teams, the same schedule. So it hasn't been changed apart from the location. Yeah, and I think China recently confirmed that this disease can be transmitted between humans. So I think it's just becoming quite a high risk. And there's pressure growing on the IOC to move the boxing qualifying event that they have there next month as well. So that's for Asia and Oceania, men and women. They'll all be competing at that next month. So it seems like they're going to have to also move that, because I think if the football tournament's being moved, then there's absolutely no reason why they can't also move the boxing competition. And I suppose you've got to protect the athletes as much as possible, really.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we'll continue to follow that story here on the WiSP Sports Desk. Nancy, where are you going to be this time next week? Do you know?
I should be in England as well. There aren't any, touch wood, because every time I say this, I jinx myself. But there's no, I don't actually have any trips assigned to me until the Olympics, basically. So because it's Olympic year, it's really, really quiet. So hopefully, well, not hopefully, because I enjoy traveling, but I should be in England next week, sorry.
Next week even. All right, same time, same place. We will be bringing you the very latest from around the world of women's sports. In the meantime, you can follow Nancy on her blog on insidethegames.biz and on Twitter at
Nancy_Gillen.
Okay, perfect. And of course, you can follow us at WiSP Sports. And you can also contact us here privately if you prefer, dropping us an email at info@wispsports.com if you have any questions or comments about the show and others that we do here at WiSP Sports. Or you can post your comments on our Facebook page as well. We have a lot more shows available on any podcast app at WiSP Sports. We are the only global podcast network for women's sports. So there's lots of choice there. And you can also leave us a review on the Apple podcast app. We love to get reviews as well. So that helps our ratings on what used to be iTunes, but it's now Apple Podcasts. And we're available on any podcast app. So until next week, Nancy, what are you following? Any particular stories that you're keeping an eye on now?
We'll just kind of continuing to watch the Australian Open and just every sport competition really that's happening. Nothing in particular, but just enjoying sport as always.
As always. All right. Well, good luck to Arsenal. We'll see what happens. They're playing this weekend.
Yeah, they are, and I can't remember who they're playing. I think it's Continental Cup, which is the League Cup competition. So I think that's this weekend. I think it's a semi-final. I think we've got. I can't remember who it is, but it's a big game. I can't remember, but it is a big game. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you'll be watching that. I hope they have a bit better luck this weekend, and we can talk about it next week on the show. So we'll be back next time, this same time next week here at WiSP Sports. So join me and Nancy Gillen until then. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.